Of interest and importance to the neurodivergent community. It is a way of promoting maybe what are new ways of thinking and being in space together. And so then we can go forth into the rest of our lives and carry it on. And that is how culture change happens. Well, we hope that this is a place where you feel safe and supported right from your very first time. This is not a support group. It's not for medical or mental health advice. Although we talk sometimes about topics related to healthcare, it's still not for medical or mental health advice, education purposes only. It's not the right place to make personal requests or address personalized needs. It's for education purposes where you can listen, learn, observe what neuro inclusive space looks like. It's a place where everyone's welcome to come and to learn. It's not a neurodivergent affinity space, meaning anyone, regardless of how their brain works, is welcome to be here to learn and think about how what you see here maybe connects to your life. There is no one right way to participate here at Brain Club. You can have your video on or off. Even if it's on, we don't expect anything of you. Certainly do not need you to sit still or look at the camera or any of those other neuronormative constructs. So feel free to walk or move or fidget or stim or eat or take breaks or whatever else needs doing. We will have time for discussion after our panel, and during discussions, you're welcome to use mouth words or the chat or any other way you'd like to communicate, and observation is a valid form of participation. In addition to affirming all aspects of identity, one of the other ways that we keep the space safe for all people to be here and space together is that we think about the group's collective needs over that of any particular individuals. That is my visual support to make sure I can see the chat. All right, now I can see it. Oh, thanks, Lizzie, for posting our community agreement. Speaking of the chat, you are welcome to use the chat throughout our program tonight to ask questions or comment about the content that you're hearing. It's a place where you can validate other people's comments or share how something you've heard has impacted you or ask questions. We just ask that if you are going to use the chat, we ask that you use the big box, like the main big box, and to avoid using the reply threads because what happens is that makes the chat bounce up and down, and then I can't read them and I can't respond to them. So if you could please use the big box, that would be amazing. Thank you. All right, tonight's format, we're going to have a presentation from our panel, which is a pre-recorded panel that will run about 23 minutes, and then we'll have time for a discussion and take-home points. If it's your first time at Brain Club, it's okay not to understand what's happening here. Just keep coming. And Lizzie's going to put some logistics in the chat if you'd like to read some of the things that some people ask when they're new to Brain Club. All right, so it's July. It's a new month. We're going to start our new monthly theme. This month, we will be looking at loneliness and overcoming loneliness, which is so much of what we try to do here at Brain Club. As always, thank you so much to everyone who has supported Brain Club. Thank you for making it possible for us to be able to put on this program every week and to be able to have our panelists be compensated to share their lived expertise with us. So thank you to everyone who supports Brain Club. I do need to say that there's going to be some heavy topics that come up in tonight's panel. We'll hear from folks discussing racism, transphobia, ableism, and medical trauma. These are the reality of the lived experience of our community, and we will make space to learn and to reflect on what we hear tonight. What we know is that those things are barriers to connection. Of course they are. And we know that connection is the path to health. And so when we think about this quote from Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the former Surgeon General of the United States, social connection stands out as a largely unrecognized and underappreciated force for addressing many of the critical problems we're dealing with, both as individuals and as a society. Dr. Murthy wrote a book called Together about the relationship of social connection and health. We covered this at Brain Club last year, and Lizzie's going to put a link in the chat both to the book and to the recording from the Brain Club book chat on the book. I also want to draw attention to another previous Brain Club on social connection, where our own Sarah Knudsen presented on the relationship between social connection and health, and how we are wired for connection and what happens when we don't have it. What we know is that lacking strong social connection has the equivalent harmful impact on health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And we know that neurodivergent adults and children um, often struggle with profound, deep loneliness. And when we think about all of the many ways that humans are othered in our society, when we think about the intersectional impact of marginalization for so many aspects of identity, the impact on social isolation is exponential. And so we know that to do anything for the neurodivergent community, we have to do everything, which is why we don't just have a medical practice here. Social connection is one of our core focuses of our work, because this is such an important part of health. So, what we have been endeavoring to do over the past 3.5 years is to create a space for people to be able to come together, to learn about themselves and their needs, and to connect with other people. And yes, we have a medical practice, and yes, I think we do a reasonably good job of medical care. But so much of what happens here in the medical practice is that patients connect with other patients. It's really about the profound impact on self-narrative that happens when you connect with other people who get it and who can reflect back to you your own experiences, and you realize you're not the only one who goes through the things that you go through. And so here at Brain Club and in our medical practice and in our other community programs, this is what we feel is the path to unlearning and reimagining what community connection can look like. I'm also going to introduce our community engagement coordinator, Reagan Dufresne, who is going to talk about another of our community programs, Kid Connections.
Hi, everyone. My name is Reagan. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator, and I also run the Kid Connections program here at All Brains Belong, Vermont. Kid Connections is a connection-making program for youth ages 4 to 17. And how it works is there's a Google form, and the youth or the parent fills out the Google form, and then it gets sent to me, and I try to make matches based on special shared interests, communication styles. And then we also have an in-person in Vermont option, which is where Vermont youth can connect. And yeah, it's a really amazing program, and we've had really amazing stories shared with us. Recently, I had a parent say that she is so surprised by how much her youth has in common with their Kid Connection match, which is on the other side of the world. And that's the other thing. Our program is open to kids all over the world. So there's a chance that youth can make friends with someone on the other side of the globe, which is so amazing.
Awesome. Thanks, Reagan. And in addition to the opportunity to connect with someone who loves what you love, it's free. It's completely free. So spread the word about this opportunity for anybody who might benefit from some support around making a friend. Our medical practice has also reopened, now accepting new patients with Vermont Medicaid, Medicare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, MVP, or self-pay. Our medical practice is open to folks who live in Vermont. And Lizzie's going to put a link in the chat for anybody who wants to learn about that. All right. So I would love to introduce our panelists, Simone Arnold, Rai Webeloki, Aspen Cupper, Caitlin Blow, Jay Green, Amy Rutney-Rickenbaker, and Bruno Chouanier. And with that, I will play our video, and this will run 23 minutes, and you're welcome to use the chat while we listen. We wanted to talk about this idea that when you are living in cultures where people don't get it, that is isolating, and that has an impact on health. What's
Mm.
been your experience of that?
So I kind of have like two ways of thinking of this. The more direct answer to your question is like it's gotten a lot better recently because I have more friends who understand. As we get into summer, it's probably going to get worse again. Because I'm probably going to get a lot of invites to like do things outdoors and go on hikes and stuff like that. Um, I feel like since I have made friends who understand, or at the very least are aware enough to ask if they're not sure, um, it's gotten a lot better. Um, but I still have one person in my life who consistently is like, hey, want to go on a walk? Hey, we're going to this event. Do you want to walk there? And I'm just like, bud, and I think the hardest thing for me is in my head, I'm like, is this person forgetting that I'm disabled, which sucks and feels really invalidating, or does this person not believe that I'm disabled?
I do want to say that it's really hard. It's really, really hard to there's a lot of grief, I think, is the right word for it, involved in accepting that I have some limitations right now.
Loneliness can make you and break you at the same time. And I was surrounded by people telling me I shouldn't be who I was. But it was different than being around everybody coming from all angles telling you who you were is wrong and trying to make you tear yourself apart into different identities that were disparate. That And I think at that point when I was younger, I internalized that as like it's better to be lonely than torn apart. That choosing of the of being myself or trying to fawn and be less of myself, that it was better to be myself than to tear myself apart into pictures of goals that I was never going to meet. Um,
So loneliness was a strategy to reduce harm.
I think on a big level, yeah.
And you carried that with you through most of your life.
Yeah, and still, I think, yeah, I think loneliness has been a strategy on a certain level in order to maintain my sense of self, which I think does really relate to my health. Um, that being said, I think it takes its toll. I'm freaking tired. And I'm burnt out, and I can say that easily now. Like when I'm angry about oppression in the world, I'm angry, and I've been holding that back my whole life.
The messaging is that I don't matter,
Yes.
that I am not an important part of whatever you are trying to do.
Yes.
Whether it's hanging out with me, whether it's having an event and being like, sorry, it was the best place we could get. And it's like, cool, okay. Um, so much I could go into with that. But like what the messaging is there is I am not important enough to be considered in figuring out how to make it work. And a lot of the times it's also like people are like, "Oh, we're having this thing. I didn't invite you because I know you can't do that."
Oh.
And it's like, "Thanks." And also, why didn't you first of all, invite me and let me decide. Like, you can preface it with like, "Hey, I'm not sure if your body can handle this, but we're doing this thing. Would you like to come?" Or better yet, ideal world is how can we make this accessible so you can join us?
Yes.
And sometimes if it is a hike up the mountain, then I'm just gonna be like, nope, have fun. I'll join you for ice cream after. Um, that happens. But like the fact that it feels all or nothing and that there's no room for like, how can we make sure you can join us in this is so, so upsetting. And like, is it like really, really impacts the quality of the relationship.
And I live in a, you know, a small community. Um, but yeah, I'm not really a part of, I'm too much this to be that, and I'm too this to be that, and I'm too that to be this. And I fit in between all these different realms that have all these very hard junctions instead of wavy overlapping spaces and on multiple identities. And so um, I think loneliness has been a strategy.
So, and I think this idea of I opt out of trying to interact with quote community because community is unsafe. Community is expecting me to not be authentic. I can't safely be authentic. I'm being rejected for all that I am, so I opt out of this. I think that's really common in the All Brains Belong community, which is why I think it's like it feels really radical. Like, why, like, what do you mean I'm gonna like interact with other people? Why would I do that? Other people suck. Anyway, what has been your experience of meeting others in the
Um,
ABB community?
yeah, it's been wonderful. Um, really wonderful. I think that all of us have so many things in common and also so many unique things that make us us.
What do you think ABB's role is in supporting neurodivergent people?
I actually think it is the community aspect of it, and that's really where I think most of the like healing and growth happens because you're dealing with folks who have like really complex health things that oftentimes we can through research trace them to like suppressed rage and anger, to like suppressed like trauma that hasn't been like processed, to just like systemic stress and overwhelm. And so the community piece helps reduce the shame because the sharing of narratives is shame reduction, which then means that we can like work through all of the other things. So like if I could hook all of my clients up with an ABB like community, I would, because I think it would be integral to their healing process.
And fabulous to have it's fabulous to have ways to interact with community that don't involve the things that really tire me out, like going places in person and riding in cars and whatever. So like shout out to the ABB Discord. It's so great to like, you know, it's as I was looking over sort of the prompts for today, I was like, wow, I think one of the best things about the Discord is that I'm like a very service-oriented person. Like I really get a lot of joy and fulfillment from volunteering and that kind of, you know, mutual aid efforts and stuff. And I can't really do a lot of stuff like in-person volunteering right now. But like if someone has a question about something on the Discord, I can do a little research or, you know, I can I'm really good at summarizing complicated ideas into sort of bite-sized chunks. And you know, making things a little more easily digestible. Um, so yeah, I feel like I have so much it's so great to have like ways to contribute and connections with people that don't involve, you know, going in person and again putting myself into sort of a fatigue crash. Um, and then also just like the fun stuff, you know, posting pictures of our cats and you know, sharing those links to, you know, video essays that I'm really excited about, things like that.
This is a fairly new lens that you have, the idea of I have a finite capacity, I have a finite amount of energy, I have to triage where it's spent, there's all these factors, and I have to like do the math.
Yeah.
It's kind of a newish thing in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That you have a lens to understand. And I think that there's so many people in our community who are acquiring that lens for the first time and meeting other people that are navigating these things. So maybe the last question I'll ask you is just around what do you find most valuable about ABB's role in supporting neurodivergent people?
I think that I get to hear lived experience and lived like tips and tricks. And I get to like connect with people if I like, I feel like the most valuable part for me has been connecting with people who have similar experiences, who can relate, who can give me their own experience and what has helped for them. And also, like, I know that if I were having a hard day or I was really lonely, I could put that in the chat and someone would show up. Either a voice, and like this is the great thing is that like it might not be exactly what I want, but it will be something where it's like I can't come visit you, but I can do a voice chat with you. I can do a video call, or like one person from ABB has come to my apartment and helped me change my bed sheets, which was like sounds so small, but I literally can't change my bed sheets by myself. Um, and every month I'm like putting out an ask on my Instagram for like someone to please come help me change my bed sheets. And so to have someone be willing to come do that and there'd be no judgment, um, and knowing that like, well, I hope they know, but I know that like if they had an ask that I could fill, that I would have their back. So it's like it's the lived experience and it's like the mutual aid.
Something that I think is really valuable is this opportunity to be heard by other people and seen, and while also getting your needs met. And there's just something kind of magical about that. When I first started seeing it happening as somebody participating in the groups, I was just like, they're onto something pretty special here. And you're getting to connect with people. And I think it's, you know, being somebody with a chronic illness and limited energy and limited, getting out and about in the world is an effort, is a real effort. It's just it's a great opportunity to just be able to connect with other people, and then to have it be other people that know what you're going through, that have similar medical concerns as you do. There's just something about it that's just very healing in itself, even before you get the prescription you need or anything.
What was healthcare like before ABB?
Challenging and difficult would probably be the best words. Um, once once I started having a lot more health problems a few years back, I started bringing long lists of we need to look into this, and for the 15-minute doctor appointment, they couldn't really deal with that.
Yes, and because of the hidden curriculum of medical education, the patient with the list gets a bad rap, even though, like, what is wrong with collecting and organizing information? I love when people do that. It's so helpful.
Yeah.
But that's the narrative. And I think that, many people have you pick up on vibe or energy, and you're like, oh, well, that person doesn't like me, or that person, and I think that happens in healthcare encounters. And I think it's true. I think it's true. I think if you perceive that you're being judged, you probably are.
Prior primary care practitioners kind of get a random doctor or nurse practitioner. Was pretty frustrating because they don't. I've had things where they don't know what's going on, and they just kind of shrug their shoulders and don't know what to tell you. And like, wow, no, it's not a good feeling.
I could name at least 3 symptoms or conditions off the top of my head that I've been diagnosed with that are sort of idiopathic, which in technically means something like of an unknown origin or cause. But to me, it really feels more like we don't really know what's causing this, and we're not going to do any work to figure out what it is. And it wasn't until I found clinicians who believed me and a community of people who also experienced those symptoms and could provide some support around, like, what are some practical things that you can do to make yourself feel better outside of like the medical system.
I started attending Brain Club before I became a patient and learned a bunch of things, and then I was like, okay, I need to be a patient here. It's miles and miles ahead of the typical healthcare system.
What do you think about the group medical visits?
took me a little while to get there, but I'm fully on board in that regard. I found that much like Brain Club, the group medical visits become both validating and educational when other patients in the group, sort of chip in about, oh, I experienced that too, and or this is how I've dealt with that sort of health issue, and I have felt listened to, heard. I've felt that my healthcare concerns are believed. They're not scared of lists of things. And they're also not scared of like that maybe I did some research online and either know for sure I have something or wonder about it.
The conditions that I've been dealing with my entire life, like they're genetically based, and I've had symptoms or signs that I've had these conditions my entire life, and it took until almost 35 to get the diagnosis that actually fits the whole picture, explains everything, and points towards some practical treatments and solutions to actually make life a little easier.
The other part of it is the community aspect of it. All Brains Belong, I think, has worked hard to make that grow, and I think it's a really important part of the whole thing. Like at least I'm coming to understand that now. Like I've had two community members that I consider friends that I hang out with now, and it's unbelievable how how validating it is and comfortable to chat with these people and hang out, because you have a shared language and a shared experience. There's once you've delved into all the Brain Club topics and have started unlearning all the garbage you got earlier in life, like you don't have to put on a mask. You can just be yourself, and it feels good.
If everyone is trying to overcome and unlearn all of these things individually, these things cannot be unlearned individually, at least not, I mean, not to say that also as a person new to chronic illness, I don't even know what this would be like to not spend my whole day around other people who get it. I have no idea what that would be like. That would, I've never tried.
I think the solution to the sort of individualistic society and the external and internalized ableism is like connect with other people who can validate your experience and say like, hey, you're not alone in this, and find ways to find like fulfillment and contribute in ways that feel meaningful, that also don't exhaust you.
I invented a language map to describe myself within the world, and everybody has had to do that, whether we consider ourselves neurodivergent or not, because like colors, we all have different rods and cones, so we all see blue differently than everyone else sees blue. And so there are commonalities there, but we don't actually know how to perceive what those commonalities would be, because colors are different for every person who has a different fingerprint or a different pattern of how their eyes see. And so we've all created these different languages.
What I wonder about is language can also be activating to some people, and having self-awareness, kind of know what activates you, and then with a dysregulated nervous system where one just doesn't have access to the parts of their brain that are necessary to bridge those gaps and the pursuit of common language. It's like too late unless you're self-aware and can kind of like activate return. But when that doesn't happen, you might have some people who can observe a pattern. There's that coping mechanism, there it goes. But when you're in it and you don't know it and you don't have the self-awareness, it makes it just very hard. And so what I have appreciated about this community is that because there are so many people who are actively not only pursuing their authentic self, but are learning about themselves and acquiring language to better understand themselves, in addition to the language that they maybe made up and had a narrative that's like that narrative actually changes based on
Yeah.
the language that they hear from other people, which becomes a more it's just a different narrative. And
Yeah.
I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. I think it does. I think absolutely it does. And we come together at ABB or anywhere else, we have to choose to want to know the other person's language and how to fit it within our own in order to have a conversation that's functional. Because otherwise, our coping mechanisms get in the way and duke it out in a non-functional, useless pattern that echoes what we see on TV every day and what we hear on the radio and listen to in songs and what we see in the government and everywhere else on the planet. So the language there, I think, is something that we find together here.
Wow. Thank you so much to our panelists, Simone Arnold, Rai Wethaloki, Aspen Cupper, Jay Green, Amy Ruddy Wurtenbaker, and Bruno Schwarnier. I'd love to open this up for conversation. What has stood out to you, or what are you taking away about either what you heard or what you're thinking about loneliness and health? Either in the chat or out loud. Olivia says, so powerful. Lots of thank yous to our panelists. Well, Alvar says, I tell friends when we have shared experiences of suffering that I'm both sorry they can relate and grateful to know I'm not alone. Chills. So powerful. Thank you, Alvar. Hey, Bruna.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, very good. I, I think it's been really neat hearing all these other people beyond myself too in this, but I know for myself, I get to recognize that, through all the years of, being alive where I've struggled with deeply intense shame over things in my life, I've found I've been able to come back to the private Discord to talk and that because yeah, I used to isolate, like I would experience deeply intense shame and just kind of run away and hide from everyone for a month. And I haven't done that so far. But it's also part of, accepting responsibility for, my actions and choices and things I say. It's all part of it.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that, I think so many people in our community have the experience of they share something of themselves and then they're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. A lot of times when that happens, I mean, sometimes it's a habitual response of self-doubt because of all of the past relational trauma that has happened. But a lot of it is because like it's actually not safe. Like those are not social environments where it is okay to show up as your true self. And so I think what we hear from many people is that, maybe with some practice, you can, oh wow, this is a place where I shared that thing and there was no judgment. Oh, that's a safe environment, whereas somewhere else it may not be. Thank you for sharing. Sierra, you had your hand up.
I did. I think this was a fantastic panel, and for me it really brought up how I've spent so much of my healthcare career being really frustrated about not feeling like I'm able to address the things that are really harming people's health. I think like Simone, I think it was brought up of the overwhelm that is what's hurting so many people. And that community support and community care feels like a way to address like a major part of what's harming people in terms of social isolation, even if I can't fix capitalism and all the ways that that harms people's health. And I think one of the really cool things about it is that it's more accessible than traditional healthcare. You don't need a medical provider to administer it. You don't need insurance to cover it. Like community is something that you can create anywhere. Not totally accessible, but more accessible. And that's a really cool thing. That you can do it during free events like this, and people can create it wherever they are. And then it's not held behind medical gatekeeping walls.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think some of my perspective on that is that like some of the most powerful things are what happens between community members when they're not with us. They're not at a medical appointment. They've made a relationship, and that's where the magic happens. Like that's where the profound shifts in health and self-narrative and all of it happen. And I think that hopefully, and we hear from folks at Brain Club, just when you think you're the only one who experiences something, and then you learn that you're not. I mean, that is so health promoting, or can be for many people. There's a question in the chat about the expression of double empathy. So the double empathy problem is a term that was coined by an autistic social scientist named Dr. Damian Milton. And he found through research that it's not that there's like autistic people and not autistic people, like one group of people has good social skills and the other don't. That's not what was found in the research. It was that non-autistic people and autistic people don't communicate in both directions, that the communication breakdown happens in both directions because of a mismatch in worldview and communication style. And so that the double empathy problem refers to the idea that two parties need to find a way to understand the other's perspective. Sarah says, I think what I've learned so much about through ABB is that there really is no distinction needed between physical health and mental and emotional health. It's all just health. Absolutely. Well, what a beautiful note to wrap up on. We're going to be continuing this discussion. We're going to be talking about loneliness and work next week. We're going to be talking about reimagining how we think about work. And we have another wonderful panel in store. So I thank you all for being here and being part of this conversation and being part of our community. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.